Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another edition of the Underhive Wars. This time we're talking about the beginning of round number 4 for our Sector 7 Dominion campaign. And as you can see on the map that we have laid out here, a lot of the territories are being filled up at the beginning of round number 4. In fact, there's only a handful of territories that are not claimed up to this point. So as you can see on our map here, we have our keys. Blue hexes are marked out for Caldor, red for Orlock, yellow for Delak, green for Van Sar, orange for Goliath, purple for Escher, black for Gene Stealer Cults, as well as brown for Chaos Cultists. We've also included kind of like a maroon color as well as a ocean blue color. The ocean blue color is for the Venators of Precinct 13, and the maroon color is for the Venators of Section 8. And as you can see here, those two hexes are hexes number 27 as well as hex number 4. Those are the capos for the two Venator gangs, so that way you know where exactly they're located at. They don't get territories like everybody else in the campaign, but as you can see though, all the other gangs have actually gotten quite a bit of territory. Currently, at the beginning of round 4, the Gene Stealer Cults of the Red Faction has 4 hexes of territory. As you can see, they basically have all that territory as well. The Eschers, which are marked out in purple, they have 3 hexes of territory. Orlocks have 2. Delaks have 2, Goliath have 2 as well. Up here in the top, the Chaos Cultists, they only have 1. Van Sar has 2, and of course the Caldor have 4 as well. And that's where currently our territory situation looks like. So let's go talk about the scenarios. This will be fighting around number 4. I'll also go through our current rankings. Currently in the lead, at first place, is the Red Faction of the Gene Stealer Cults, followed by House Caldor with the Jury. In third place, we have the Enforcers of Precinct 13, located here as well. Fourth place are the Pelago Slam Kings of the House Goliath. Fifth place are the Killjoys of House Escher. That is our 5th place gang. 6th place is the Orlocks of the Ironsights of House Orlock. 7th place are the 911 of House Van Sar. 8th place are the Sleeping Dogs of House Delak, which are located there. 9th place are the Venators of Section 8. And 10th place, of course, are the Dustmen of the Chaos Cultists. So, with our very first fight for round number 4, it will be fought between the Orlocks of the Ironsights, as well as Section 8 of the Venators. The second fight will take place between the Dustmen of the Chaos Cultists versus 911 of House Van Sar. The third fight will be the Killjoys of House Escher versus the Precinct 13 of the Enforcers. Battle point number 4 will be fought between the Pelago Slam Kings of House Goliath versus the Sleeping Dogs of House Delak. And the very last fight of this round will be kind of like a championship fight between the Red Faction of the Gene Stealer Cults as well as the Jury of House Caldor. So that would be a really interesting one. I'm really looking forward to that fight because my friend Screaming and I are leading the campaign right now. So that's going to do it for this one for round number 4. So with round number 4 let's go and talk about the very first battle report for round number 4.
Alright, so now that we got the round 4 information for our campaign over with, let's go and talk about the scenario. So this one is another episode of the Underhive Wars. This time is fought between my 2 friends, Dark Lord Mac and Fresh Prince Bel-Air. Dark Lord Mac is playing Section 8 of the Venators, while Fresh Prince Bel-Air is playing the Iron Sights of House Orlock. So this is battle report number 16. It's a good old-fashioned standoff scenario, so these 2 guys will be fighting it out in a good old-fashioned gang fight. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll. We're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what the gangs are bringing, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So let's get this started. Alright, so the scenario for this one is a standoff with the objective. The objective is to take out as many of the enemy as possible. Every single time you take out an enemy member from the rival gang out of action, you get points associated to it. Leaders are worth 3 points, champions are worth 2 points, and 1 point for everybody else. And needless to say, whoever has the most points by the end of the scenario ends up being the winner. For the rewards, the winning gang gets D6 times 10 credits, while the loser receives D3 times 5 credits, and in the rare case ends up in a draw, it's D6 times 5. For the the experience, each fighter gets 1 point of experience who took part in this scenario, and also the winning gang leader earns an additional point of experience. For reputation, the winner earns 2 points of reputation for the winner of the scenario, with 1 point of reputation for each gang if they fight against each other for the very first time. And since it's the first time these two gangs are fighting against each other, they both earn a point of reputation. And of course, if you bottle out, you lose 1 point of reputation. So with the scenario rules over with, let's go ahead and talk about the battle plan on this one. And here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, my friends are playing on a 4x4 table this time. If you'll notice, the game mat we're actually playing is brand new for our studio. We purchased a asphalt 4x4 gaming mat from Frontline Gaming. So if you're wondering exactly what that is, we decided to go with that one because it's a nice flat mat. It's also really good at absorbing shock and miniatures, and it's also 4x4 dimensions. And plus, it looks really cool too. It's got a lot of asphalt and oil spills and all kinds of cool stuff on it. As for the battle plan, I'm not really sure what my friends were planning on this one for the most part. They didn't playing the scenario, I'm just taking photos of my friends playing it out, but it looks like they're kind of going for an assault as well as a suppression type maneuver for the Orlocks, whereas the Section 8 looks like they're just kind of lined up so that way they can, charge across the battlefield as quickly as possible to engage my other friend, Fresh Prince Bel-Air. So that's really it for the battle plan on this one. So with the battle plan over with, let's go and talk about the deployment real quick. So starting with Dark Lord Mac's deployment on the far left hand side behind those 2 HESCO barriers, as well as between the Quantum building on the left hand side and the walkway on the right. Those are 4 members of Section 8. In the back, that is the Saracen, that is the gang leader. Leading up in the front, that is Buzzkill, Val the Impaler on the right hand side, as well as the Kurgan in the center. And all those guys are carrying a harpoon gun for Val the Impaler. I believe it's a chainsword plasma pistol for Buzzkill and 2 servo claws for the Kurgan. And that makes up the deployment on the left hand side for Section 8. In the center of the battlefield, on top of the top floor of the Tower of Terror, is Red Harvest, that is the gang champion's armed with a long rifle, and right behind him is another new hunter, that is Mayday, she's armed with a last gun. And that makes up the deployment in the center of the battlefield. And on the far right hand side of the battlefield, we have the rest of Section 8. On the left hand side, that is the brand new champion AWOL Al. He's armed with a bolt gun as well as mesh armor. I think he has the fast shot ability as well for his skill. Right next to him on the right hand side, that is Red Cap Killer. That's another champion. He's armed with a bolt pistol as well as a plasma pistol, and he's also got the gunfighter skill. And then right in front of them is a brand new hunter, that is Noose Taggart. He's armed with a shotgun. And that pretty much makes the deployment for the right hand side for Section 8. So across the battlefield for the Orlocks on the left hand side, that is Kundalini, that is a ganger who's armed with a grenade launcher as well as a maul, and that's his position right there on the top of the Alexander's department store. And also in the center of the battlefield, I believe that is Torque as well as Mudguts, and I think it's that's one of the Juves, I'm sorry, that's Clunk. Those are the 3 guys who are located right there in the center of the battlefield, right beneath that little fighting position there in the center. And in the top of the gantry walkway there, you have the Knight Rider, who's the gang champion who's armed with a heavy stubber, as well as Bubba Zanetti, who's a ganger armed with a drop rig, as well as a auto gun with a telescopic sight. They're right behind that HESCO barrier. And following the right hand side, we have the rest of the gang, which is the Toad Gun in the back, who's the gang leader, who's armed with a bolt gun as well as a maul. Right in front of him are the 3 Jubies for the gang, that is Clunk, Johnny the Boy, as well as Diobando. And that pretty much makes the deployment on the right hand side. So with deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and my friends roll off for initiative to see who goes first. So the top of turn number 1, my friend Dark Lord Mac ends up getting the initiative on this one, so because he has priority. So the first thing he decides to do is activate Red Cap Killer, and since Red Cap Killer is a champion, he can also activate another ganger as well. In that case, he activates Mayday. So the first thing he does, he takes aim with Red Cap Killer, actually has an open fire with both of his shots from his long rifle. Not only does he manage to hit as well as to wound, I think he managed to hit as well as pin the Bubba Zanetti, who's across the gantry walkway across from him, and then he also managed to hit as well as wound the Knight Rider. Now the Knight Rider does take a wound, but because of the knockback rules, the damage, he fails his strength test, so he takes double damage on that one, and he also falls off the end of the gantry walkway that he's deployed at. So as you can see here in the top, he ends up managing to pin the pinning Bubba Zanetti, and since he was the closest target, since he's free to go, he's able to hit the Knight Rider, and the Knight Rider both is seriously injured and takes 2 flesh wounds. He actually takes a flesh wound from the first hit that he got from the long rifle from the damage from failing his strength test. He takes a serious injury from the second wound from that, and then when he fails his initiative test and falls off of that walkway and lands on the second level, he lands right on top of that, and he takes another flesh wound for his problems. So right off the bat, first blood is going to Section 8, who managed to put 2 members of the Iron Sights down. Mayday does try to take aim with her last rifle at Bubba Zanetti, but unfortunately for her, though, she missed her shot because he's right behind that HESCO barrier. In response, my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates Clunk, who then takes aim with his grenade launcher and opens up with a frag grenade shot across the battlefield directly towards the Saracen, as well as Val the Impaler, the Kurgan, as well as Buzzkill. He aims the 3-inch blast template right in the middle of all 3 gangers, and not only does he manage to hit the Kurgan, he also managed to hit all 4 members of Section 8 with that frag grenade shot, so that part was actually pretty cool to see that actually happen. Unfortunately for Fresh Prince Bel-Air though, he wasn't able to cause any injuries, but he managed to pin all 4 of these guys. Now all 4 of them do manage to pass their strength test, so because they are not knocked back, they're just kind of laying down on the ground right now and pinned. So they will have to spend a simple action to get back on their feet again, so we'll kind of affect them a little bit, but at the same time though, he also kind of puts some hurting onto Section 8 at the same time. Realizing the threat that these guys are facing, Dark Lord Matt then activates the Saracen, who then in turn also activates all 3 other hunters because he has the commanding presence ability. So because that, all former gang members get on their feet and they make a simple move because that's all they can. They spend one simple movement to get back on their feet and they move their normal movement allowance. Now it's not enough to get them out of range of that grenade launcher or behind cover, but at this time I think my friend Dark Lord Max is trying to get his guys moving as quickly as he possibly can. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates the Toe Cutter, who then also uses Commanding Presence ability to activate Clunk, Diabando, as well as Johnny the Boy. Now he sends all 3 Juice forward, each one of them using a double movement to get behind that barrier there on the front of the other side of the Slime River, so that way they're taking cover. He does stand his ground with the Toe Cutter, and he actually has him take aim with his bolt gun and shoot across the battlefield towards Noose Taggart, who's assaulting on the right-hand side of the battlefield. He manages to wound Noose Taggart as well as put a serious injury on him as well, so because of that, both gang champions of AWOL Al and Red Cap Killer have to take cool checks, which they both automatically pass with no problem. So because that already put the first hurt on those guys to begin with. He then activates, I believe, AWOL Al, who then takes aim with his bolt gun and fires across the river towards the Juvies. And he actually managed to hit 2 of the Juvies as well as wound 2 of them. Diabando he actually puts down with 2 flesh wounds, so Diabando's in a really bad situation. At the same time, he managed to get an out cold result for Clunk, so earning the first out of action roll for Section 8. Now, because of Johnny the Boy so close to his 2 friends who just got gunned down by a bolt gun, he does have to take a cool check, which unfortunately for my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air, he does fail. So because of that, he runs like 8 inches to the left-hand side, right beneath that gantry walkway support pylon, so that way he's out of being shot at. And that's an additional point for my friend so Dark Lord Mac, because he managed to get an experience point for taking out Clunk. And Diabando's in a bad situation because at the best, all you can hope for is to get a serious injury roll, so that way he's just laying on the ground bleeding out. If he gets a flesh wound, he automatically goes out of action. If he gets an out of action roll, he also goes out of action. So things are not looking very good for my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air in the opening salvo of this standoff scenario. So not to be outdone, my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates, I believe that's Mudguts, that guy's armed with a shotgun with a solid slug. He opens up with the shotgun, unfortunately though he misses his shot, so not much really happens from there. And I do apologize, I actually made a mistake on that part. It wasn't actually AWOL Al that caused the injuries, it was Red Cap Killer. I forgot to take a photo of Red Cap Killer. Red Cap Killer actually moved up his normal movement allowance to the base of those sandbags and cut loose with both his pistols. That's what ended up happening. I do apologize. Because in this photo, my friend Dark Orlock Mac then activates AWOL Al, who then takes an aim with his bolt gun and aims directly at the Toe Cutter. He actually hits him twice with the bolt gun because he has the fast shot ability. He managed to take all 3 wounds off of the Toe Cutter, putting him down with a serious injury and also giving a flesh wound as well. So definitely things are not looking very good for Fresh Prince Bel-Air on the right hand side of this battlefield, because now his whole right hand flank is pretty much collapsing at the same time. And since the rest of the gangs of the Iron Set are all that's left over, my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates Torque as well as Starbuck. They cut loose with their auto gun as well as last gun respectively towards Val the Impaler as well as towards Buzzkill because of the closest targets to them, and they open up with both their weapons. They do manage to hit Val the Impaler as well as Buzzkill, actually putting a flesh wound onto Val the Impaler, but that's about it though. They're both just kind of stunned at this point. They're both just kind of laying on the ground, just pinned, and not much is really happening for the most part. So with that being said, turn number 1 is over with. We go directly to the end phase. So the first thing that ends up happening for the end phase is that my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air has to take a battle test, and unfortunately for him, he failed his battle test at the end of turn number 1. So because of that, all the rest of his gang members will need to take cool checks to see if they actually stand their ground and stay, or whether they flee off the battlefield. Unfortunately for him though, when it comes to his injury tests, when he rolled for the Toe Cutter is still seriously injured, so he's just laying on the ground bleeding out. The same exact thing ends up happening for Noose Taggart, so he's just laying on the ground bleeding right now. And the same exact thing ends up happening for Diabando as well, who's just laying on the ground, because at best, like I said, the best he could hope for is a serious injury roll, because if he gets a flesh wound, he goes out of action. If he gets an out of action roll, he goes out of action as well. So things not looking very good for Diabando at this point. Meanwhile, for the Knight Rider, he does roll a hit injury for his serious injury because he goes out of action. So because of that, he does lose 1 to his will as well as his intelligence. So that's pretty rough for Fresh Prince Bel-Air. But on a positive note, Johnny the Boy does recover his nerve, so because of that, he will be able to act normally in the next action phase that ends up happening. So at the end of turn number 1, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and the first thing that has to happen, of course, is that my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air has to take cool checks for his entire gang. Unfortunately for my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air, Bubba Zanetti decides that he's not going to stick around because he just watched his friend the Knight Rider get shot off the table. So because of that, he panics, and so he's fleeing off the battlefield. And the same thing happens for Clunk, so he's decided he's not going to stick around to see how this ends either. So right off the bat, my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air just loses 2 more members of his gang. And this is before we even roll for priority to see who ends up going first. And with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Venators. They managed to get the priority on this one as well. So my friend Dark Lord Matt then activates the Saracen, who then in turn activates Val the Impaler, Buzzkill, as well as the Kurgan. All 4 of those guys do a double movement to the right-hand side of the battlefield to where that little barrier is located at, on the other side of the on the near side of the Slime River. So that way they don't get shot anymore by the long-range fire that the Orlocks are actually pumping into them. They're kind of taking cover because they don't want to get shot at right now. So that's the action phase on this side of the table. Meanwhile, the Toe Cutter, who does recover with a flesh wound, moves up his normal moon allowance to that barrier right next to Diabando. He takes aim with his bolt gun. He opens fire onto Redcap Killer, who's across the Slime River onto the near side of the table where Dark Lord Mac's forces are located at. I think he does manage to hit him one time, but that one hit was all he needed because he did put a Redcap Killer out of action, and because of that, he gets an out cold result for his serious injury as well. So, getting the very first out of action roll for the Section 8. In response, my friend Dark Lord Mac then activates AWOL Al, who then opens fire with his bolt gun directly at the Toe Cutter. And not only does he manage to wound him again, he also puts him out of action as well. So because of that, the Toe Cutter does take an additional flesh wound, and he's also hobbled as well. So he'll have -1 to his movement allowance for the rest of the campaign. So things are not looking very good right now for Fresh Prince Bel-Air. Meanwhile, Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates Mudguts, who then takes aim with his shotgun with a solid slug and fires it directly at the Kurgan. He does manage to hit the Kurgan, but unfortunately for Fresh Prince Bel-Air, all he does is manage to pin him because the Kurgan is built for tough. That guy has a toughness of 4, so he is pretty deadly right now. So he's just laying on the ground, just kind of stunned right now because he got shot across the battlefield by a shotgun. Dark Lord Mac then activates Redcap Killer as well as Mayday. He does move Mayday up to the edge of the battlefield. She does take aim with her laser rifle and opens up onto Mudguts, but unfortunately for her though, she missed. However, when it came to Redcap Killer though, Redcap Killer does manage to land his shot with his long rifle. He does put 2 points of damage directly onto Mudguts because of the fast shot ability that the Redcap Killer has. Not Redcap Killer, that Red Harvest has. He does a serious injury to him and also puts a flesh wound on him as well. So that's another member of the Iron Sights who's laying on the ground bleeding right now. At the same time, he does activate Johnny, who then moves to the left-hand side. Johnny the Boy gets to the left-hand side of the steps leading to the Slime River. He does open up with his auto pistol, but unfortunately for him, though, all of his shots miss. And the same thing happens to both Torg as well as to Starbug. They're unable to land any of their blows as well. And that pretty much makes the action phase on this side of the table. And finally, Diabando just crawls back 2 inches because that's all he can really do because he is down and out right now. During the end phase, we go with the recovery rolls for all the characters who are down. Noose Taggart is still seriously injured, so because he's laying on the ground, he's still bleeding out. And Diabando rolls another flesh wound, so because that he goes out of action too, and when he rolls for his injury, he rolls a grievous injury, so because that he goes directly into recovery. And finally, Mudguts also rolls a serious injury as well, so he's not doing much of anything except laying on the ground and bleeding at this time. And it's also at this time that my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air decides to call the game because he's lost too many gangers and he doesn't want to lose any more than he absolutely has to, and that takes directly to end the scenario with the Venators winning this standoff scenario. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go directly to the post game and talk about what happened to each of the gangs because this battle report is now officially over. Alright, so starting off with the Iron Sights, there are 4 injuries from the Iron Sights. The Toe Cutter suffered a hobbling injury, so because that loses 1 point to his movement. The Knight Rider also suffers a head injury as well. So because that loses 1 point to his willpower as well as to his intelligence. Clunk received an out cold injury while Diabando received a grievous injury. For the advancements, the Toe Cutter spent his experience points to level up to earn him +1 movement, so he does away with the hobbled result, so that part's kind of nice. The Knight Rider earns +1 to his initiative, and Johnny the Boy also levels up as well, earning +1 to his cool. From his territory, he ends up winning 30 points of credits from his settlement as well as 1 point reputation, and from his drinking hole, he also earns 1 more point of reputation from that. During the merchant phase, he ends up winning 10 credits from the scenario and 30 credits from his settlement, and when combined from the 5 credits he had in his stash, he ends up with a grand total of 45 credits in total. He purchased a drop rib from the Knight Rider as well as frag grenade for Johnny the Boy, and placed the 5 remaining credits back into his stash. For his reputation, he does earn 1 point reputation from his drinking hole as well as from his settlement and from fighting against Section 8 for the very first time. However, since he bottled out, he does lose 1 point reputation, netting him a grand total of 11 points of reputation. His new record now is at 1 win as well as 3 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 1,330 points. Meanwhile, for Section 8, Red Cap Killer ended up with an out-call result, and that was it. For the advancements, the Saracen leveled up, earning the Overseer skill for his leadership abilities. Red Cap Killer earned +1 to his Ballistic skill, and Val the Impaler earned +1 to his Cool. From their territory, they earned 40 credits from their settlement as well as 1 point reputation. Not 40 credits, 50 credits from the settlement and 1 point reputation. From the merchant, he earned 50 credits from the settlement, 50 credits from the scenario as well, and he also earned 90 credits from his reputation total, ending him with a grand total of 190 credits. With his 190 credits, he recruited a brand new hunter named Fancy Ling. That guy has a Vansar legacy as a bonus to his hunter abilities. He's also equipped with the Last Carbine, a Bounty Glove, Mesh Armor, as well as a High Straw Pattern Energy Shield as well. He also purchased axes for AWOL Al as well as Mayday, and purchased a stub gun for Noose Taggart. From his reputation, he earns 2 points reputation from the scenario as well as 1 from the settlement, and he also earns another point from fighting against the Iron Sights for the very first time. That brings his total reputation to 9 points. His new record now is at 2 wins as well as 2 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 1,560 points. So that's good to do for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Google Plus for all the latest greatest news about our hobby. That's good to do for this one, you guys. You guys stay classy. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.